Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our round 3 prop stream for the US Open. Going to get you guys ready for all of your moving day action with a look at some of the averages from yesterday and this morning, as well as a look at the weather report, how that'll impact play, and some exposure on Underdog and Prize Picks, sports books when it comes to the round scores, birdies, all of that sort of jazz, and any matchups you want to pick my brain on as well. But it's a morning live stream, so we've got our coffee in hand as per usual, and ready to attack these boards, which will drop any second now. We had to wait for the tee times. That's why you didn't see any sports books get ahead of things. But now that we had those drop at about 8:35, I'm expecting the boards to drop at any point now. So welcome on in. Hopefully your morning is treating you guys nicely. We've got Jonathan Frady down there, nice there early. Also David with the rise and shine. Cheers to that, my man. We'll get a sip of coffee. You're not a fool for looking at Scotty at plus 800. I'm sure we'll talk about Scotty a few times here, but he was grinding on the range last night, and that's a pretty decent number. It's you said, woo, you forgot you had this loaded, just jumped a mile. Yeah, dude, if you hear me just coming out of nowhere, that would probably be a little bit surprising, but hey, glad to have you, Ross. Could I see Scott winning this? I could. He has a lot of course history around here. I will say, though, that Adam Scott is at the very end of his career. So if he wins a major, this is probably his last chance. But I've seen a lot crazier things happen, like Phil winning at Kiowa Island. So a lot of crazy stuff can definitely still come through. Jonathan says you have a couple outrights sitting at +4. I think anyone that made the cut can win this event. And we'll talk about why a little bit, Jonathan. But I think there's a -5, a -6 out there if you can hit some fairways. And even if you're +7 on the cut line, winning score is going to be around even par, I think, unless somebody goes out there and just nukes over the next few days. Could still win at +7, but +4 definitely in the hunt. Going on, Steven, we got Kevin down there as well. And yeah, definitely having a great time. And I was up at 7 a.m., so it's not really that early morning live stream for me, but coffee helps nonetheless. We got Brian, by the way, from overseas. I think you're from Scotland, right? So definitely not a morning live stream for you, but nice to have you in here too, Brian. Alrighty. Let's get this thing started. So we've got the stat averages on the screen, and these are updated after this morning. So it's for all of round number 2, and it played almost spot in line with what we had in round number 1. Birdie average went up a little bit, which was something we actually called for. And from about 2.18 per round to about 2.28. Bogey average also went up as well, though, which is kind of what we thought would happen. The golf course was set up a little bit more difficult in spots. The holes like 17 were a lot more gettable than what they were for round number 1. So I would say that with the moving day setup and all the rain that they're getting, that these scoring averages are going to improve quite a bit. And then the other aspects that you have to incorporate with these quote-unquote averages, and we're going to put that in quotes because of what we mentioned here, are the outliers that you had with all those qualifiers. The guys that were shooting like +35, like the guy in very last place, are going to have a pretty drastic impact on this scoring average. So that combined with the fact that we had all that rain, golf course is going to be just a little bit softer, has me thinking that the scoring average is going to be closer to about 3 over par. And it's not to say that the pin setup is easy. It's not. There are definitely a few holes where I could see guys getting after it. The 2 par 5s look easy, 17 a little bit easier than what you had for round number 1. But the scoring average is mostly going to change because of getting those outlier performances out. So birdie average by default is probably going to go up. Your bogey average, maybe the most affected category, I would say, with getting those outlier performance out of there, is probably going to drop to like 4, 4.5 per round. So that's also another reason why these sports books might be a little bit late to getting these boards up, is that it's a little bit of a confusing slate. You've got multiple different dynamics working against each other, right? The talent level increase, making things easier. Also, the golf course getting a little bit softer. But at the same time, if you miss fairways, it's going to be even harder to reach the greens. So I don't think it's going to be like a birdie fest or anything like that. So that's why I still have it at like a 3 over par scoring average. I just think when you miss the fairways, when you're in that deep 5-inch rough at this point, it's going to play even more difficult than what you had for days 1 and 2. And the fairway percentage, as you can see here, was only 7 per round. So players weren't even hitting all that many fairways during their rounds. So half the time, you're going to be hacking out of that 5-inch rough that is now even damper and denser than what it was before. that's why I don't think the scoring gets out of hand. So I would say your fairway average is going to go up with the rain that they've done. Your green regulation average also probably goes up a bit as well. It's not just the soft golf course, but also that talent level increase. So a fairway average closer to like 7.5 to 8 per round, that wouldn't surprise me. And then a green regulation average closer to 10.5 to 11 per round wouldn't surprise me either. So if you're using these averages as like the median for round number 3, I think you're going to be making a pretty grave mistake. And just to give you guys an idea of like the birdie bogey lines, I know I said that the birdie line would go up, maybe even close to like 3 per round in terms of a birdie average, but at the very least, probably at least 2.5 birdies are better per round, with the upper limit of that being around that 3 birdie mark. And then with the bogey average, that one is probably the hardest to narrow down. That in strokes. Those are going to be the hardest categories for us to predict for today. But I would say scoring average +3, and then the bogey average based on that like 2.5, 3 birdie average, like 4.5, I guess, would probably be a pretty decent number for that. Maybe even 5 bogeys or worse per round. We'll have to see. I think that deep rough is going to play a huge factor in that. And then also the weather, we'll take a look at that as well. It's going to be pretty consistent rain for most of the morning. So on this HRRR model, that's normally my go-to. They don't have the rain as consistent, but I can tell you as somebody with a local forecast that it looks a lot more consistent on like the weather app, weather.com, all that kind of stuff. So that's why I was looking at just HRDPS. This seems to be the most accurate forecast. So over the next hour is going to be the heaviest rain that we have on the golf course. A lot of the heavy stuff has already come through, luckily. And then after about 10 or 11 a.m., you're going to have a little bit more of a shower that comes through. And then it's going to be smooth sailing for most of the afternoon. So I actually think the hardest conditions are going to be these guys that are out first. So like a Chris Gotterup who's off early. Sorry, not Gotterup, that Philip Barber-Tree Jr. guy, the guy who ended up just making the cut on the number. He's unfortunately probably going to have the worst conditions of anyone on the golf course. Whereas your later starters, you have tee times the whole way until about 3 p.m., are going to have soft conditions, not a lot of rain to deal with, also temperatures that are a little bit higher. I would say that your guys that are towards the top, that are in form and already playing the best golf, are getting the best side of the draw today. So if you're somebody that wants the leaderboard to flip on its head, I don't think it's a great setup for it. However, the golf course is a great setup for flipping the leaderboard on its head because it's so difficult. You can't go out there and get it for 3 or even 4 rounds at Oakmont. You're going to have 1-2 spike rounds, and then the other 2 rounds that you're playing are just going to be holding on for dear life and hoping that you're not shooting +5, +6. So that's kind of the idea for why a leaderboard flip might happen, not so much with the weather. The weather actually favors those guys going off later. So a Scotty Scheffler, for example, that is going off towards the middle to later half of tee times would be getting the better side of the draw for today. So the players like Rory, Xander, they're going off on the first few tee times. I still think a few of them are going to have really good rounds. I'm playing a bunch of them in fantasy today. They're also low owned for DFS purposes. So that was kind of the idea with me getting to a lot of those guys. But they're not getting the better side of it. Like, there are going to be plenty that blow up, especially the ones that are missing fairways this morning, which is easy to do when you have a wet club face. Wet club face tends to make the ball really squeeze from left to right, right to left a little bit more than what you're used to. If that ends up becoming problematic for these guys, then you can see some real ugly scores. I'm talking 80s or above, like you've seen through the first few rounds, even with a little bit of a softer golf course. So we'll go through pin locations next. I've already done a full deep dive, but for the sake of the live stream, we'll give you guys the Spark Notes version of all these different holes. What's going on, Ross? He says, is Henley live for this? He's sitting at a +2 for sure. I think +2 makes a lot of sense. I mean, even par wins this thing. He shoots -2 and he wins it. So definitely in the hunt. And frankly, if the +7s are in the hunt, then definitely guys like Russell Henley. Usually you can't listen live, but let's have a day. Glad to have you here live for once, Todd. And that's all right, right? Sometimes you got stuff to do. I know we do the live streams rather late, so it's good to get the morning crew in here from time to time. Henley surprisingly not accurate off the tee, so might be due for some positive regression. Yeah, I'd say if he's playing well without hitting fairways, surprising, first off. I mean, normally when he misses fairways, he has missed cut sort of weeks. If he doesn't figure that out, though, it could be a problem. If he does, watch out. Could really make a run over the weekend. So good call on that, and definitely not what we're used to seeing from him. So after we go through these pin locations is when we're going to go through the boards, and hopefully we have those to go through. We didn't have the full board posted yet. In fact, let's actually just take a look over here in Draftkings. So still nothing as of 9:10, and we got the first tee time in 2 minutes. let's get to it, DraftKings. Like, come on, what are we waiting for at this point? Well, hole 1 is in the middle right side of the screen, so it's about where my cursor is right now, which doesn't look that difficult on paper, but you do have some sloping just to the right of that pin that makes it maybe a little bit trickier than you think. And then, of course, the slope of this green does go from front to back in general, at least the main sloping on that green. So it's hard to get it close unless you hit a perfect wedge shot. So I would say easier than today, easier than round 1, but it's not like a moving day super easy pin location that we sometimes get out here. One second, guys. I'm going to turn on the AC in here. For some reason, it wasn't running, and I'm starting to get really hot. Hole number 2 is the same pin as what you had for round number 1. So it's over here in this left corner, about where my cursor is right now. And that is the hardest pin that you get here at hole number 2. And I think it's even harder for today just because of how soft the golf course is. And the reason why this pin is hard, which is kind of hard to imagine when you look at it, you would probably think that this pin location is a lot harder than this back left, but not so much when this green is soft, because the real issue people have at hole 2 is when they lay back off the tee and then they're trying to hit a wedge shot in here, it ends up spinning down the slope, which I know it doesn't look that severe, but let me tell you, it is severe. When they're running at 14s on the stimp meter, they'll spin it off the slope and the whole way off the front of that green. So this is the sort of hole that I think a lot of casuals will look at the pin location and go like, oh, that's a birdie look at hole 2. Not so much. That's maybe one of the hardest pin locations that you have on the entire golf course, which is going to be even worse if they're getting more spin today. Next up, we have hole 3, which is on the back right. This is one of the hardest pins on the golf course too. So you have a slope behind it, which is an obvious no-go, and then you have a slope to the right of it as well. So it's kind of like hole 1, where you have 2 slopes that could take you away from that hole location. And these slopes are so severe that, if you hit it down them, you're going to be in that rough, and a real difficult short-sided chip will be ahead of you. So I would say that this hole is going to play significantly harder than what it did with this front pin location. And by the way, you can tell what they're doing here at this point, right? They're going, oh, it's going to be soft, maybe even lift clean in place. I meant to mention that too. I'm not sure if it's going to be lift clean in place or not. I hope not. They only got 1/3 of an inch of rain, so there's a chance that they don't need it. If they do, that's even a bigger reason to make these pin locations super tough. Hole 4, though, is one of the scoring looks. So I did mention that the par 5s did look a little bit more gettable. Today, it was, or I should say yesterday, it was in this back left corner in this little nook of the green, which is just so hard to get to. And now it's on this front left portion. So I would say that you're going to see a higher birdie percentage, just a lot simpler of an up and down. But the thing that makes this hole difficult that you can't really see from the green is that everything runs downhill to this green, and that there's a lot of slope from front to back, just like you had at like holes 1 and 10, which makes hitting it close to that front portion. I mean, you can see how short he had to land that there, Sam Burns that is, to get it towards the front portion. You're going to have to see players landing it in this approach and hopping it up to that pin location. If you land it on the green, even with the softer greens, it's still going to go over the back because you're hitting like a 3-wood in, right? It's not like you're hitting a wedge from that kind of distance. Next up, we have 5, which is a back right pin. This is easier than today. This back left pin, I saw a lot of people make mistakes to it. Ludwig Aubert ended up in this back bunker, and that was after laying up out of the rough. I saw, I forget who it was late, but somebody else did the exact same thing after having to lay up out of the rough, and it was double bogey city for a lot of players on this hole. But over here towards the right side, it's not as difficult, but the real big miss, the thing that you cannot do on this hole, which I've yet to actually see somebody in this bunker yet, is this right side bunker, because this bunker has everything running against you on this green. You can see the entire sloping of it is going from right to left. If you're in this bunker, it's also super deep, which you can't really tell from the overhead view, but it's a real deep bunker. I mean, if you're in there, you'd be lucky to even keep it on the green out of there, let alone get it close to that right side pin location. So an obvious spot that you can't miss there, but I don't know. There's not a lot of wind. I don't think many people are going to hit it in that right bunker. Like, they know better at this point. 6 is in the straight middle back of this green complex. So about where my cursor is right now, which is definitely a relatively straightforward pin. It's not one of the harder ones that you'd have at hole 6. It's going to play longer than today, or yesterday. All out of sorts here. Let's get a sip of coffee. Good morning, guys. In this middle back portion, though, a little bit of a longer shot, maybe closer to 205, 210 yards. That'll be the main difference when it comes to the scoring there. Next up, we have 7, which is a front right pin location, longer par 4. And it's up on a crown here. So this is one of the harder pins for this round. It's close to this right side bunker. And you can see if you get just past it, it's going to start running away from you. And if you leave it a little bit short, like maybe spin it back, let's say you had to lay up and you're hitting your third shot in with a wedge, then you could spin it off this false front and off the green real easily. So like the soft greens are going to help in general, but there are spots around here, especially with how they're sending out the pin locations, where it could also just screw you if you end up getting a lot of that spin. 8 is in the back left. This is the hardest pin that we have at this 300-yard par 3. It's going to be brutal to get to, almost impossible to hit anything within 10 feet. It's tucked over the bunker, which when you're hitting driver 3-wood into it, it's kind of comical that you try to even remotely even consider hitting it close. So a lot of people are just going to aim out right, try and hit this front right portion of the green, and then get down in 2 with a 2-putt. But even doing that is going to be difficult with the speed of the greens at Oakmont. Next up, we have 9, which is a back left pin. This is the longest that 9's going to play all week. It's going to be close to 490 yards, I would imagine. A little bit of a backstop to work with. So that's going to be advantageous for these players. So it's on this little bit of a lower spot here. But you have these little depressions on 9. 9's got to be the hardest green that I've ever seen in my life. And it's not really even this portion of the green that I think makes it the hardest green that I've ever seen. It's the front portion. And you can see over here, like where this 3 ended up, there's this little like trough through the green, which if you're over to the left and putting to the right, I saw so many 3-putts for people trying to get through that trough and to the other side, and then vice versa. When they play it over here to the front left, like I think they did for round 1, you had guys missing to the right and having a real difficult time getting close to that pin location too. What they're going to use for Sunday, at least from what I heard, is it's going to be down here on this low area. And look at this little hump right here. This hump they call the piano bench. And I don't know why. It doesn't really look like a piano bench or anything like that, at least from what I can see. I'm sure if somebody like drew it out for me, I'd be able to put it together myself. But this little piano bench on this bottom right corner, you can see the sloping to it. If you're pin high to the left over here, and I saw players practicing it like Wyndham Clark, Chris Gotterup, it's impossible to get to that bottom right corner. You have to be so precise. You have to hit it on literally the right granule of grass up there on that little shelf to get it down into that little corner. And I saw Wyndham hit like 5 putts. One of them got within 10 feet. And then I saw Chris Gotterup try it 3 times, and then he didn't get it within 10 feet one time, putting from over there on the other side of the green. And again, guys, this is guys putting, trying to putt to a location. They can't even lag it within 10 feet. It's going to be a lot of fun when they use that Sunday pin. But over here in the back left corner, by the way, this is the practice green down here. This is not the actual green. It's going to be closer to this back left corner. Don't sleep on it, because you still have this little trough right here. You still have all these little waves. You can kind of see them with the overhead view throughout this green. If you miss short right over here, even pin high right, 3-putt percentage is probably 25-30%. Just kind of like know that in the back of your mind. Just hitting the green here is not that big a deal. And because it's in the back, I kind of like the idea of like there's going to be guys on the putting green today. So I might sit up here near hole 9, just over here to the right side, watch some guys putt and see if anyone's yeeting golf balls into the back of it, because that just feels like something that'd be really funny to see, and not a very common thing in golf, right? Seeing a green that is shared with a practice green. Next up, we've got 10, which is a front left pin location. So it's about where my cursor is right now. It's not as hard as round 1. Round 1, it was on the front right. The reason why I say that is because it's on the low area now. Over here on the front right, it was on the high area and at the front. Everything does slope from front to back, just like at hole number 1. But if you do land it short, let's say like about where my cursor is now, it's going to roll up onto the screen into that low area. So it's the second hardest pin at hole 10. These front pins on 110 are by far the hardest that you can get there. But this is slightly easier than that front right. Next up, we have 11, which is, let's see, where's 11? Front right corner. Michael Kim called this a really hard one, so I'm going to take his word on it. And I kind of see why he would say that, because it is tucked just over this bunker, and then you have some sloping to the left, which will take your ball off of the green. And it kind of looks like it's on a high area too. I mean, you can see that. You have stuff running away to the left, stuff running away to the right, and then it is in a little bit of a trough in terms of like your up and down sloping. But we'll see how that one plays. Michael Kim thinks it's going to be really hard, and he's a pro, so I'll take his word on that all day. 12, he thought was relatively easy. So 12 is a front right pin location, another one of the par fives. Just like the other one, 4, everything does slope from the front to the back. So you kind of have to land it short, but this front pin location is going to be the easiest to chip to and try and get up and down, especially with a little bit of a softer setup. By the way, if anyone's watching this and knows if it's lift, clean, in place, that would be sick. Gotterup or whoever's on the first group is already on the golf course. So I don't know if they tweeted anything else or if you guys are watching the broadcast and can give me that information, but that's going to be crucial when we go through these boards. Next up, we have 13, which is a front left pin location. It's about where I am right now. This one doesn't look terrible, but it is in the narrowest part of this green. So if you can hit the green, I think there's going to be birdies at hole 13 because it's only like 170. However, it's a big however, look how freaking constricted that is. I mean, you've got this trench to the left, you got the bunker to the right. That is only like a 10, 15 yard wide green. That is going to be a real difficult shot to get, especially if you're somebody that likes curving it a lot, hitting a big swooping draw, big looping fade, whatever the case may be. That's going to be a really, really tough hole. I wish it was windy. If it was windy, it'd be impossible, but we know it's going to be pretty calm out there. 14's in the back right corner. So this is a pin location I'm glad they used for today because with the soft conditions, if they used a pin here on the front side, it'd be birdie city. Like if they used one down in this low spot, it would play like a half a stroke under par. It's a borderline drivable for some of your long players to begin with. Like Rory took it on and was able to get into this bunker. I believe Bryson also got it near the green complex as well. And I think was able to make a birdie on that hole. But now that it's in this back right corner, it's a harder chip if you choose to do that angle, but only the elite tier bombers, the longest of the longest players, can really even consider that. Most people are going to come in with a wedge, and because of how soft it is, getting to a back pin location with soft greens is not an easy thing to do. In fact, I think what you're going to see happen is you're going to see people get over aggressive and go into these bunkers over the back and make double, triple bogey out of that sort of a lie. So I hope I'm right. You're still going to see birdies there because it's a shorter par 4, but I think that pin location is going to be a lot trickier than what a lot of people would expect. 15 is in the back right corner. This is one that Michael Kim thinks is impossible, and I'm right there with him. Not only is it a super long hole, it's going to play like 525 to this back, but you have sloping to the right of it. This is kind of like the holes, I think it was 1 and 3 that had the same kind of thing going, where you had sloping over the back and sloping to the right side of this green there. I mean, this is I don't know. I thought a couple other pins might be the hardest of the day, but this one's going to be even more difficult, I'd say. Next up, we got 16, which is a middle left pin location, about where I am right now, so not that far from round number 2. I would say about the same difficulty. It does bring in this trench bunker a little bit more into play, as it's a few steps closer to that hazard, which if you weren't here for the live stream for round 2, this trench bunker to the left side of 16 is probably the one spot on the golf course that you just can't get into, or else it's an automatic bogey. It's so deep, it is so narrow that you're never going to get a good lie in it. And what you can't see from this overhead view is that it's flat. So it is like a flat trench and it's super deep. It's like 5 yards down. And what happens when you get a flat bunker and there's no like rounded sides is that the ball doesn't roll down to the bottom, right? When you have rounded sides, it rolls down the slope. I mean, you've seen it if you played golf. I mean, you can see the trail in the sand, right? The ball rolls down. When it's flat, that doesn't happen. There's no gravity to move the golf ball as much. So there's a chance that it goes right up against the lips. That's what happens in trench bunkers. That's why they're called trenches. And that's where you go to die and lay down in your grave. You end up against the side and you have to take an unplayable sometimes is what happens in those kind of bunkers. So don't sleep on 16 in that pin. I think you'll see birdies there. I mean, it's wide open. If you can hit the green, hit it short enough and run it up, you're going to hit the ball close and have the ability to make a birdie. But you make a mistake there, kind of like on 14, and good luck. You're probably making double. Next up, you got 17, back left pin location. This is a drivable par 4. So I think you're going to see a lot of birdies here like you have the first few days. It's slightly harder than what you had for round 2. Round 2, this front right pin location was the easiest that we've had so far this week. It's now going to be a little bit closer to round 1, which was on this back right corner. And then finally, 18 is a super tough pin. Front left, it's just over a false front. This false front, by the way, takes everything down about 30 yards off of this green complex. And then if you happen to miss in this left bunker, then you're short-sided with everything running away against you. It was a much easier pin for round 2 when it was in this low area. Now over there on that front right corner of that green, golly,
the formatting's a little bit different for this, so it's making us look at the hole for some reason. But over on this side of it, much more difficult. You can't use that backstope to hit it close like you had with the Sam Burns, and that's also why when we go to the scoring averages, even with the softer conditions, even without a lot of wind, I think it's going to play to like +2.5, +3. Like I think it's going to be pretty difficult. I still think it's going to be easier than the first few days. Undoubtedly going to be easier. That's just conditions and them getting the shitty players out of there. But I don't know how overboard you'd want to go with projecting that field. So I could see myself taking some unders on strokes, maybe even some overs on birdies for round number 3 that I wasn't looking as much at for rounds 1 and 2. So a lot of that depends on the pricing. I think they're going to price the board a little bit lower than what you had for the first few rounds. But something to keep in mind is that the sportsbooks knew about the shitty players kind of screwing up those averages. They adjusted for that in a lot of their stuff for rounds 1 and 2. So the bigger adjustment that they're going to be making with their projections, I would assume, would be with the course conditions themselves. The extra rain the course has, the more receptive nature of the fairways and greens. But let's see what we've got. Maybe we've waited long enough at this point where we have a full board to attack. At least I'm hoping so. Let's see what we've got. Fingers crossed that we don't have to wait even longer on this. Where's the round props? Did they just pull them off or something? Oh boy. Come on, Draftkings. Yeah, I don't see anything up for round props yet. Golly, let's see. Any lift clean in place? Anyone with information on that? No tweets about it. Okay. So I think we might be in the clear on that then. By the way, all those averages I was saying was assuming no lift clean in place. Let's see. Where'd we leave off? Luke heating up. Yeah, luckily now I'm cold. I've got this real nice air conditioner blowing some cold air on me. But yeah, we were heating up for a second there. What's up, Luke? You said you'd be lost without me. Glad to be here, man. It's a lot of fun. And hey, let me know any specific questions that you've got. Let me some AM, Luke. Cheers to you on that, man. I love myself some coffee, Luke. It's I'd say when I'm thinking my best, thinking the clearest. What's going on, James? It's because they buried one of Stevie Wonder's piano benches in that location. Oh gosh, Stevie Wonder, what a legend, by the way. I always say someone's putting like Stevie Wonder when they're reading the greens terribly, as a homage to him, right? Not as a bad thing. I love my guy Stevie. He's a great musician, whatnot. But let's keep this thing going. No tweets. Yeah, let's see. Barbary Jr. never hit the fairway, so that doesn't help much. Yeah, even if he had lift clean in place, probably wasn't going to matter for him. He said they're not on FanDuel either. I mean, we can just talk about what I want to do when we get aboard then, but they're going to have to post up at some point. I mean, it's the U.S. Open. It's a major. They've had this situation before, and they've posted boards. I'm imagining literally any second now is when we're going to get those posted. You said thoughts on Griffin under 72.5. So 72.5, that's about what I think the scoring average is going to be. I'd personally rather have an elite tier player for an under 72.5. Ben Griffin is kind of, in my opinion, marginal. I mean, he's about an average, maybe a slightly above average player in this sort of field. And if the scoring average is +3, I'd say that's more than likely where I think it's going to come in. That would make that an appropriate projection because, projecting him for a half a stroke gain to the field, I think would make sense with the kind of form that he has heading in. But I wouldn't say that that is like overbearing value. Now, if we take a look at his shots gained record, he has gained across all 4 stat categories. That is very reliable. So I think that it's a decent lean for sure. Like I wouldn't be against taking it under at that spot, but I would say that the projection on paper makes a lot of sense at that sort of number, at least if it is around that +3 scoring average. And just to confirm, let me see if they have said anything about this lift clean in place, because it would be really annoying if they went with that. Let's see. So it looks like nothing was posted quite yet. We'll assume that it's not at this point. So it looks like they're just getting some of this stuff up here. So you can see the hole props just got added to the board. They did add the round prop category back. So we're probably going to get those round scores, all of that here in just a minute or so. So yeah, let me know any specific questions. Like if there's Prize Picks underdog boards up, I can't bring those up because it's banned here in Pennsylvania. They don't even let you look at the board in sites that you don't, or states where you don't have it. So you guys can let me know any props you guys want me to deep dive on that, just like we had with the Ben Griffin one there. But in the meantime, just so that we're not just sitting around doing nothing, let's go through the 2 balls and matchups first. Obviously, the props, the pick'em side is going to be a really big part of this live stream, but let's give them just a few more minutes to get those up for us. So overall, do I think pins look harder? Yeah, I do. But it's not going to make the course harder, if that makes sense, Blake. So that's part of the reason why I still think it plays 3 over par. The amateurs getting out of there and the fact that it's super soft is going to more than make up for that. It's unfortunate. We want it to be carnage. We want a winning score way over par, but it's just not going to be possible. Mother Nature gave us a lot of rain, about a half an inch of rain overnight, and that's going to be the bigger factor. Burns over 72.5. See, that's one where I don't know if I'd really lean over or under. 72.5 for a guy like Burns that's got the form like a Ben Griffin. It's the exact same kind of situation for me. He's should be slightly better than that projected field average, but am I going to take him for an under? No. And, you're obviously looking at the over right there. I guess from the pressure standpoint, the standpoint of being the 36-hole leader, you could use that as your narrative to fade him there, but I don't think it's particular value. Like if he was at 72 strokes and they were giving him credit for the form, being the 36-hole leader, and they were, juicing down his prop because of that, then I might fade to Sam Burns. But at the number where I would put him for a projection, like if I was making the board, he'd be 72.5 strokes. No, I wouldn't fade him at that sort of number, right? I usually try to find a half a stroke to a 1-stroke value before I enter something, but I would say if you bullet to my head, I had to take something, I would probably go over. Okay, the sleeper board's up. I can't see that in Pennsylvania either, but if there's any props that you're curious on, I will give you my full deep dive. And also with Sam Burns, just to go to the shots gained metrics, it's almost the exact same as Ben Griffin, gaining across all 4 stat categories. I mean, it's probably going to come back down to earth at some point. I mean, this is an absolute brutal golf course. Even your best players like Scotty Scheffler have struggled over the first few days. I would say that I would be more willing to fade guys like Burns and Ben Griffin than to take them for unders. And that might be playing with fire. That's likely why they're not going to be a piece of exposure that I mix in myself. But I would lean over. Again, bullet to the head if I had to. Let's see. Brooks versus Nick Taylor, pretty better matchup. Seems like a solid bet. Is that a 0.5 matchup? Again, I can't take a look at it myself, so you'll have to give me all the details if you guys want me to break any of these down. Assuming that it's a 0.5 because it's a pretty big talent gap difference. I can't imagine they'd have them at 0.0. I would lean over for sure because the matchup between Brooks and Taylor today, I believe they're playing each other. Let's see. Is my memory correct on that one? Let's see. No, so it's Brooks Koepka versus Siwoo Kim. Who's Nick Taylor against? I was looking at a matchup against Nick Taylor, so that's why I was thinking that. I was also looking at Brooks Koepka matchup. So he's against John Rahm, and I was looking at Rahm at like minus 240. Now he's only minus 200 there. I might have to consider doing that because I was considering fading Nick Taylor in this market on a John Rahm. With Brooks Koepka on a birdie or better matchup, I wouldn't be completely against it. What I will say, though, is I'm going to bring up the Live Golf stats real quick. We'd be remiss not to show you how shitty he's been this year on the Live Golf Tour. I wouldn't say it's massive value. Like normally it would be because he is one of the top 25 players in the world, top 15 players in the world most years. This year, though, absolutely not. When we take a look at the birdie or better list on the Live Tour, I don't know exactly where he comes in, but he's number 11. So he's actually higher than I thought he was going to come in at that sort of number. But even then, on a tour with only 54 players and a lot of guys that just aren't that good, especially like the bottom 20, 25 guys on Live aren't even really like professional golfers at that point, or at least not in their prime, let's say. They're a lot of major champions, but guys that are like 5-10 years past their prime. Number 11, though, a little bit more respectable than I was expecting to see. So I don't think it's a terrible lean. The 0.5 is why I don't think it's something I would enter myself. If it was a 0.0 matchup, then yeah, I would take the Brooks Koepka on that side. They could be a no-brainer with the push equity if they end up tying, but with that 0.5, it'd be tough for me to want to take. And here's another thing to consider with those matchups with the 0.5 is when the birdie average is 2.28 per round, getting an extra 0.5 means a whole lot more than when it's at a golf course with a birdie average of 5 per round. When it's a birdie average of 5 per round, that's 10% of your projection there. Here, it's over a little bit under, what is it, a fourth to your entire thing there. Need another sip of coffee. Early in the morning, guys. But yeah, it's a much bigger difference when it's only a 2.28 birdie average as opposed to having like a 5+ birdie average. So you'll have to let me know on that aspect because that is a pretty big deal on that one. Rahm under 71.5. So to shoot +1, I mean, he sets up really well stat-wise, man. So I'm tempted to take that for sure. So just to show you what I mean by that, if we go to John Rahm's stats so far, his tee to green numbers have been one of the best of anyone in the entire field. 2.6 strokes approach, getting 1.2 shots gained off the tee, and then losing 1.6 with a putter. I don't know. I mean, it's just such a hard golf course that +1 is like, I don't know. I don't know about that one, man. I'll have to see what they do on some of these other sports books before I give you my take on that. Is shooting +1's going to be gaining 2 strokes to the field is essentially what we're asking for. At least if it's a +3 scoring average, gaining 2 strokes to the field is not easy to do. Even for like your best players in the world, like a Scotty, like that's essentially his baseline. We're asking Jon Rahm to have a Scotty Scheffler like day, and unlike the first few rounds where you had those shitty players where gaining a few strokes to the field was almost a given for these regular PGA Tour pros, Live Golf Tour over here with Jon Rahm. That's not the case when you have the cut line at a U.S. Open. It's not the case when you have only the best players that made it to Saturday. So I don't know. That's sketchy, man. I think that's probably a good number for him too. Like, yeah, he should probably gain a stroke to the field on average. So maybe a 72 projection is where I'd have a Jon Rahm. 71.5, it wouldn't take his over just because of how he's playing right now. Like, I think he's going to have a good day more often than not. But just like that Burns, that JJ Spawn line I was talking about before, it's not enough value for me to get there myself. I just feel like we're going to be able to find somebody at 72.5 that's a little bit of a higher tier player that we can attack for that kind of number. Any players that I like to fade, that I said that I like bombers, but who do I dislike? It's not really a skill set that I'd be looking to fade. It's more so guys that are short game dependent, Jonah. So this is something I mentioned a lot during my fantasy live streams, but guys that have gained a whole bunch of strokes putting, like that's very difficult to keep up. Like this Philip Barbary guy, more than likely going to come falling off a cliff when it comes to his shots gained putting. A Cam Young isn't going to gain 3 strokes putting every single round. And when it's multiple short game categories that are lining up, so like for Cam, it's not just the putting, but also around the green. JJ Spawn, it's the around the green and the putting, where he's been lights out to this point. Henley, same thing. He's been a little bit short game dependent. Those are the sort of players that I would raise a pretty big red flag on. Whereas the ball striking stats, that's what we were looking at before with like Jon Rahm. That's why I think that he's probably going to play well today, is because he's towards the top of the shots gained ball striking list. Now, when you're somebody that's towards the top of both short game and the ball striking, that's how you are top 3 or top 5 player in this field. That's how you're leading, like Sam Burns is after 36 holes. But that's very difficult to keep up over all 4 rounds. That's why guys like Sam Burns, Ben Griffin, Dietrich, these guys starting in the top 5, top 10, a lot of people expect them to come back to the field because, sure, they might keep up the ball striking stats, but that short game is more than likely going to have to come back down to earth a bit. So, and Adam Scott, by the way, his ball striking has been ridiculous so far this week. And you can see his putting it around the green has not carried him to this point. So I would say that if there's a guy up top that looks the most primed to hold their position, it would be an Adam Scott, maybe a Hovland. Hovland's gotten really lucky around the green, though, so that would be like the one thing you could use to nitpick on his stat profile. But yeah, Adam Scott, Jon Rahm too. I mean, his ball striking has been spot on, and then he's lost strokes with the short game category so far this week. Hopefully that gives you an idea of like the other side of it. Obviously, ball striking is very good, but those short game categories can be a bit of a red flag. Henley versus Rasmus matchup with the 0.5. Ooh, Rasmus makes a lot of birdies. I'd stay away from that one. In fact, Rasmus makes more birdies than Russell Henley does a lot of times. So I might even take the under on that sort of a matchup, especially with how Henley's been short game dependent so far. In fact, I might even like make that a play I told my people on Patreon to take, because I mean, let's just take a look at the averages this year. I'm not exactly sure where Rasmus ranks out. I know he hasn't had his best season so far, and Henley has had a really good season, but I think even then, I think it's going to be closer than it should be, and that 0.5 might be good for the under. So 1 second here. I'm just bringing up the birdie or better list so we can do that research. Okay, so we got Rasmus, number 30 on tour. It's going to be tough to beat that. And what's Henley's number 16? So yeah, he's had that really good year. Yeah, give me the Rasmus side, man. I mean, Henley's had his best year in God knows how long this year, and he's number 16. Rasmus isn't even playing that well, and he's number 30 on tour in that category, and he gets the extra 0.5, which you got to remember, at a course with a birdie average that's going to be 3 or less. It might get up to 3 today, but even then, it's still a massive, massive part of that projection. I definitely want the side with that 0.5. And he said it's also Scott versus Shank with the matchup with a 0.5. That one makes a lot more sense. Shank's a lower tier player. He doesn't even have full-time status anymore on the PGA Tour. So that one I could see actually having that 0.5 discrepancy, not the one before, though. In fact, I think there's some value on that fade. Am I not a fan of using drafters? That's the only option you have where you are. I've never seen it before, Mackenzie. I don't even know what Drafters is, to be honest. So I guess I'd have to do some research to see what it's all about. But yeah, let me know, I guess. Is it just like these other pick'em sites? I've never seen it before. Hey, brother, first time tuning in and says, thank you for this. Of course, welcome on into the stream. By the way, you guys, smash that like button if you guys haven't already. Already 100 of you sweaty tryhards in this live chat already. Let's get that up to 100 likes. I know it's a little bit of wishful thinking, but hey, if you guys could all be absolute legends and do so, that would be sick for this stream. And he said, thoughts on Dietrich for the under 73 or Perez for the under 73.5. So my issue with guys like Dietrich and Perez are that they've played over their heads the first few days. If I'm going to take an under on somebody for today, I don't want it to be the guys that are going to be feeling pressure like those two. I mean, they've never been in contention at majors. Dietrich, I think maybe once before, has been in contention. I think, what, PGA Championship, he was in the mix for a little bit. But especially like a Victor Perez who made a hole-in-one, those are the kind of guys that I could see come crashing down to earth. So I think in general, I'd be okay with unders on some guys in that range, but probably not those two players in particular. Dietrich's in the top 10. He's going to be feeling a ton of nerves. Perez, like I said, playing just over his head the first few days. It's not to say that that's a terrible thing. Form is good to see in some cases, but when you're dealing with a mid to lower tier player like you are with Victor Perez, I mean, we have to be honest about it, right? He's not an above average player in this field. He's at best average, I'd say, which is not a diss. This is a major championship field. It's the best golfers that you have in the world. So I always like to preface it with that. I'm not talking shit about the guy. I'm just being brutally honest about it, because that's what we need when we're breaking down these sort of things. You know, he probably should be at 73 and a half strokes, I would say. Dietrich is probably the one that I might even consider for an over at 73 strokes, just because of the push equity there. And I mean, he's gotten so lucky the first few days. I mean, I've bet against him on a few markets, and he's just hit all the fairways. He's had a really high green regulation percentage. He's not always that good of a ball striker. So I'd have to think that he's going to probably have a rough day over the next, at least one rough round, I'd say, over the next 2 days. Wouldn't surprise me, though, if he had a good round too. It's certainly possible. He said Carlos Ortiz over 72.5 on Sleeper. Then he said Xander under 72.5. I love the Xander under 72.5. That's what I'm looking for, man, are elite tier players at that sort of number. You can tell me that they can gain a stroke to the field and cover that. That is by far the best prop that I've seen thrown in chat so far. So if that is still available, guys, that Xander 72.5, I would enter that as quickly as you can before it ends up moving. I don't imagine it's going to stay at that number. And then Carlos Ortiz for the over at 72.5. I'm not against that one either, especially because, I mean, he's not the most consistent player. He's decent on live, but in this kind of field, he's probably about an average player, we'd say. But I actually agree with that projection on Ortiz. I think that he probably should be a little bit better than the field average, but I don't think there's a ton of value either way. Berger under 73 strokes, I could get behind that one. He's a really good driver of the golf ball, accurate and relatively long. I know he fell apart towards the end of his round number 2, but it will be slightly softer conditions. I'm okay with that with the push equity there. Spawn over 72.5 blow up day. And then he said Scott under 72.5. I'm not against the Spawn over for sure. The Adam Scott under, I think, is a little sketchier, but I'm with you on the Spawn over for sure. Ben Griffin, top debutant at -190. Oh, I'd have to see who's even in that market, man. I've got to admit that sort of niche market isn't something I'm just going to know off the top of my head. Let me know who else is even in the consideration for that, because I don't know all the debutants off the top of my head. But if you can give me like the top 3 to 5, I can give you some better thoughts. Victor Perez under 73.5. I don't love that one. I know we had somebody throw that in chat before. I think there's better players you could take at 73.5, players that aren't going to be dealing with as much pressure, or that made a hole-in-one the day before. What you guys got to realize about a hole-in-one is that that's complete luck, right? Like, you're not just going to make a hole-in-one because you're good at golf. Like, sure, hitting it closer to the hole has a lot to do with it, but there's also 99% luck in getting that thing to drop. His rounds and his scores so far look so much better than what they are in reality because of that. I just keep that in mind, I guess. Bull Rom post top post chant. So those kind of markets, man, I'm not going to go through them on here because it's not really what we do until the end, at least. Like, if you want to hold on those questions towards the end, we're going to have to go through the board, right, to give you my thoughts on that sort of value. So hold off on those to the end, man, and I can give you my thoughts, but we're going to focus on the pick'em side for now. First time watching live, there you go. Yes, just like the others, they have restricted the main ones. So yeah, just use what we're doing here on that site. So we're not going to have the ability to go through it on here just because, I mean, I've never heard of it before. I don't know anyone that really plays on it. But I mean, everything we're talking about here can be utilized there, right? Maybe the projections aren't the exact same in every single case, but if I'm looking for an elite tier player at 72.5 or an under, you can translate that to your board over there. Like I'm sure it might be a little bit different in some cases to what we have on these other sites, and use it that way. So that would be my best advice if you're watching these previews and you're on a site like that. For example, this week I'm up in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh. We only have the sports books to work with. My exposure on these streams is not going to be on a site like Underdog, Prize Picks, or Sleeper, but people are still asking questions about those because I can still give you my thoughts on those even if I can't play them myself. So if you have any questions about the board, any specific props you want me to deep dive, feel free to let me know. And by the way, guys, DraftKings still hasn't posted a board. This is getting ridiculous. Normally they're the first ones to get stuff up, and they're lagging behind sites like Sleeper and that. So it's just surprising. Scotty over 0.5 matchup versus Xander. I wouldn't take that. No, those 0.5 matchups are absolute. It's like a sucker pin in golf. It's the kind of thing that's meant to be a trap. Those 0.5s on a birdie average that is less than 3, that it's just no way. I don't care if you're world number 1, unless it is just a drastic difference in talent level. I don't think an over makes sense at all. In fact, if I was looking at that board, even with those 2 players in particular, Xander might be the value there because Xander does not average less than 0.5 birdies less than Scotty. That's just not the case. Xander's one of the elite tier birdie makers on the PGA Tour as well. I would look at unders for most of those. Thoughts on Finau under 73.5? I love that, Kevin. What site is that on, by the way? 73.5, just shooting +3 to cover that sort of thing. That's what I think a field average day is going to be. So like we had questions about like Victor Perez at 73.5 before. Like that's kind of sketchy to me. I think it's a decent line. Finau's not so much. Like I love that line at 73.5. You tell me that somebody that's a multiple time tour winner, long player off the tee. I like bombers for this kind of setup, especially if he can hit fairways. If Tony Finau hits fairways today, then he's going to be absolute money. And yeah, you're saying that one's on Sleeper. So yeah, if I was entering on Sleeper right now, which I can't, it's unfortunate because I think there's some value based on what we've seen so far. I'd go Finau under and that Xander under at 72.5. I'm not sure what the multiplier would be. Maybe it's crappy. Sometimes it's crappy on Sleeper, but if it's anything close to like 2.7, 2.8x, that feels like a pretty good 2-man to run there. Thoughts on fading Scotty at 70.5? You know that fading Scotty is playing with fire, but he was visibly struggling. I saw him grinding on the range, Jack, so I didn't get to see him on the range this morning, but he was clearly trying to fix it. So I think it is playing with fire. I could never really advocate for a Scotty fade. I've only faded him maybe 2-3 times in my career, ever since he ascended to being one of the best players in the world. I would say that it's okay at 70.5. 70.5 is going to be gaining 3 strokes to the field, which before the cut line I would have been okay with. Gaining 3 strokes to the field with all those amateurs in there, almost a no-brainer for Scotty for most slates. After the fact, though, it does become a little bit more of a fair 50-50. So I don't think that there's a ton of value either way. I think 70.5 is actually a good projection for him. 2.5 shots gained to the field is his baseline after the cut line. So, but over could be the play. I mean, it's a tough golf course. You're not really going to get that many complaints from fades for me. You said Dietrich's at 72.5 on Sleeper. I would fade that. So he's one of those guys that I would take for an over at 72.5. Like Sam Burns, maybe not because he is an elite tier player. Dietrich dealing with the pressure, and he's not an elite tier player. He's an above average player for sure. He's a tour winner. He's played pretty decently in 2025, but he's not one of those top 15, top 20 players that we have after the cut line. So I would definitely like that one. Henley over 71.5 on Sleeper. So yeah, let's just shoot +2 or worse. After seeing the around the green and the putting stats, I actually kind of liked Henley this weekend because of the course fit. But after seeing the fact that he's been so short game dependent, I could get behind that, man. I mean, +2 is going to be even gaining a stroke to the field. So that's going to be a better than average round even after the cut line. Yeah, I'd have to say the over would be the lean. He said Ben Griffin under matchup versus Stevens. Yes, I like that one, Marwa. So the 0.5 does kind of throw me off of some stuff, but the Sam Stevens side getting the extra 0.5, and just to go through the numbers from this year, Ben Griffin, just like Henley before, he's had a really good year himself. But even then, he's number 53 in birdie or better percentage, whereas Sam Stevens, I think, might even be higher on the list. Let's see. I guess not. Stevens does make a lot of birdies though, so it's kind of surprising that he's number 137. But yeah, I could see taking the 0.5 on a Stevens. I do have to say, I thought he was going to be like number 60 or 70, though. So it's a little bit of a tough scene that he's there at number 137. Tony, 73.5 on Underdog. I like that. So Underdog, by the way, even they have a board up and DraftKings hasn't gone around to it. Golly, what do they know I'm betting on this and waiting for the board to post? Like, by the way, if you guys are on FanDuel, let me know if they have that up because I can play on FanDuel. So I might just have to go and deposit some money over there and make it happen. This guy says, appreciate you. Then he asked me to call the winner. Oh, boy. I don't have a take on that, man. I mean, I guess I could just kind of spitball and kind of just like randomly give you a winner. I'll think about it. I don't really have one right now. I think Scotty's got a good chance to win, though. That would be my take right now. If you maybe just kind of spitball and give you one, it would be Scotty Scheffler. But I don't know. Let me give it some more thought. Scotty's at 71 on Prize Picks. Prize Picks has a half stroke higher than Sleeper. Yeah, that is pretty typical, I would say. Scotty at 71 on Prize Picks. I mean, maybe an under. I want to see the scoring before I want to take like unders on 71s. Like for sure. Like I want to make sure it's playing easier before I took an under at 71 on Scotty because it doesn't play. If it doesn't play easier, then like you're screwed. I mean, if it plays to a +4 scoring average, again, shooting even par is going to be a tough scene for even Scotty Scheffler. But if it plays easier, I could see taking an under at that sort of number. I mean, he's a machine. He was really grinding on the range last night, and I can't stress that enough, guys. It wasn't like the range was full of players after play. After you play Oakmont, no one wants to play golf anymore. They just want to go home, have a beer, maybe, have some, family time, that sort of thing, hang out with their kids, get their mind off of golf. Scotty Scheffler did not have his family around. He's beautiful family, beautiful son, all of that, right? Nowhere to be found. You know what he was doing? He was there with his team working on the range, and he was pissed off. I actually love that for my players because rather than getting frustrated and going, I give up, put my hands up, like 99% of the players did. Again, it was him and then Victor Hovland on the range. Hovland, the hardest worker on the PGA Tour. I see him on the range more than I don't when I'm at PGA Tour events. But the only other guy that was out there, you'd expect Hovland out there. Bryson, by the way, he went grinding after his round. He's that same sort of guy too. Was world number one Scotty Scheffler. And if there's anyone that could kind of rest on their laurels, not give a crap and go, you know what? Hey, maybe it's not my week. I'm still world number one, though. It would be him. But he was the one out there grinding. So that's why I'm kind of against that like 70.5 fade that we had before. I think we're going to see greatness from him today. I think he's going to shoot under par. I think that there's a chance that he's close to the lead after today's round. We'll see. It's a hot take for sure, but I got to see his range session yesterday, and I haven't seen him that locked in before. He's a very fiery competitor. I don't know if everyone really gets to see that because on the course he tries to hide it, but off the course when he thinks no one's watching, I was watching. I was sitting there on the side of the range watching him. He has a little bit of a different mentality sometimes, and you can see that. He lets the frustration out, which I love, man. It shows that he cares, and it shows that he's trying to get back after it. Thoughts on Rory at 71.5? It's actually not a terrible under, I would say. 71.5 shooting +1. That's going to be like +2 to the field in terms of shots gained. If it plays to the +3 scoring average that I think it might, Jack, I think that would be a decent under to take. He said, you're liking the fade on Hovland. We're over 72. He gained a ton around the green. I agree with you on that. He gained 4 strokes around the green in round number 2, so I could see that. And you don't have to apologize for questions. That's why we're here. He says, does Scotty get 4 birdies today? I think there's a good chance he does. If the birdie average is about 3, which is, I think that'd be a very optimistic projection. It's probably going to be closer to like 2.5, 2.6, 2.7. Even if it's around that number, if you're getting plus money at 3.5 birdies, I'd be okay with it. It was like plus 130, plus 150 odds on the sports books. But if you're taking even money at 3.5 birdies, that might be a little bit sketchier. So I guess it depends on the market that you're taking. You can let me know what sort of maybe site, what sort of sports book that you're looking at for that, but I could see it. No preferred lies, good shit. There we go. Pick 6 has lines. Okay, we can look at that. First shot of the day shown on the broadcast, Hideki hit it right down the middle and had casual water. Hey, they got to defend the course somehow, right? So they're going to let guys have mud balls. And you said Morikawa seems prime for a nuke round. I would say so until I saw this comment here from Jay Grimes that says the casual water. If you hit fairways and you're getting mud balls in casual water, it might actually be a good thing to be missing fairways. That sounds like a lot of fun. Lawrence under 73.5, I would not take that. Same thing as the guys like Victor Perez. I'm worried that a lot of the top end of the board is going to blow up, especially guys that aren't used to being in contention in majors. I love Thirsty Lawrence. He's one of my favorite players from the DP World Tour. I took him at Royal Troon last year. I took him this year in my fantasy lineups. So he's paid off rather nicely to this point. But to say that I have any confidence in him today would be just a bold-faced lie. Like, I don't. Like, I think he's probably going to blow up more often than not. So I would stay away from that one. You said water shut up on Decky's shot. That sounds fun. You guys got to let me know if that's even money and what site that's on, by the way, because if it's straight up even money, then no, because 3.5 birdies is asking a ton around Oakmont. If you're getting plus money or a big multiplier on it, then maybe. So let me know if it is that even money. I did let Decky move it, but it's still pretty wet. Yeah, if it's in an actual puddle, they're not going to make you hit out of it, but it's still going to be soupy wet around it. That's for sure. He said thoughts on Reed at 72.5 on sleeper. If he was 73, I would consider an under at that sort of number. But at 72.5, that feels like a pretty good projection. So I wouldn't lean over or an under on Patrick Reed at that sort of number. You know, him gaining a stroke to the field feels like a 50-50 prospect because he's not an elite tier player. He's in a slightly above average player, which is kind of why I think some of the other guys that we've mentioned at 72.5 strokes might make sense. But it is also why at that same number, I like guys like Xander for the under, because sure, while it might be like a 50-50 on a Patrick Reed, Xander Schauffele, who's a much better player, would be somebody I'd be hammering for the under there. So you might want to check that out. He said, unfortunately, not plus money. We're just looking at Scotty and Hovland at 3.5 on Prize Picks. Yeah, I don't know if those are value for the over. In fact, Hovland's 3.5 would be a good under value, I think. In fact, it might even be one of the better props that we mentioned on this live stream as a value for the under at 3.5. I mean, sure, soft conditions is going to help, but those pin locations aren't a joke. Like, especially on some of the easier holes, and I'll put those in quotes because outside of the par fives, the easier holes have some of the hardest pin locations on the entire golf course. The Scotty is probably a good line at 3.5. The under on, I think Hovland could make a lot of sense. You said Burns for the wins. You've got him outright. Dude, best of luck. I think you mentioned that on the fantasy stream too. I hope you can get that through the finishing line. I had him last week for the outright, and I didn't bet him this time around, but that's just golf for you, huh? You're 1 week early on somebody that ended up cashing that outright. But I'd be glad for you, man, if you could get that job done. Let's see. Has DraftKings finally posted? Still nothing up quite yet. So I guess they might just be skipping posting a board for today, which might mean that we have to just take a look at matchups and cut this thing off. But let me take a look at the leaderboard too. I am rather curious to see what the early scoring looks like now that we've had like 40 minutes in play. People have played at least a couple holes. We can take a look at what's happened so far. Because, by the way, we can talk about projecting averages all we want. By far, the best value that we have when it comes to betting golf comes when we actually see the golf course and what's happening out there live. So here we go. Let's scroll to the bottom and see what's going on. Cam Davis plus 3 through 2. Look at that. Hole 2 pin already taken prisoners. I told you guys that pin was going to be just brutal. Got him early. Barber Tree Jr. Oh, boy. I knew the pin at 3 was going to be hard, but it looks like the rough is just playing havoc on these guys so far. If you're missing fairways, it looks like it's going to be a real problem. Hole 1, he missed, and then he couldn't even get it to the green because the rough was so thick over there. Let's look at Novak. Novak bogeyed the first hole. Looks like he's probably going to bogey the second, unless he can make a good up and down from the fairway. He missed the fairway too and also couldn't get it to that green complex. Let's look at Fitz. What did he do? He missed, but he did get it there. Okay, so it's not impossible to reach the greens if you miss the fairway, but it's certainly very difficult. All right. So not playing easy so far. You can see no birdies on the golf course, a lot of bogeys, a lot of people making doubles even over the first 3 holes out there. And they haven't even gotten to the difficult part of the golf course quite yet. So, yeah, I think my +3 scoring average is going to be pretty accurate. At least I feel pretty good about it at this point. There's going to be slightly more birdies out there for sure, but I don't think it's going to be like 3.5 birdies per round. I don't think it's going to get that drastically different from day to day. So for them to have guys like Hovland at 3.5 birdies, I think could be a pretty good fade spot. And I was kind of hoping to get the sportsbook odds to be able to confirm some of that, see exactly what they're thinking. But for whatever reason, DraftKings just doesn't feel like obliging this time around. So for the exposure that I'm going to take for this live stream and for myself, we're going to try and find some two-ball matchups to go ahead and mix in instead. So if you have any of those pick'em questions, I will still go through them for any of those other prop sites. But let's focus on the matchup side for our exposure. Let's see. If Decky and English are an indication of how this is going to play, buckle up. Oh boy. So they must be having trouble on the first hole right now, huh? Any chance of thunder stopping play? I think so. It was in a few of the forecasts, but it looks like mostly just rain. So fingers crossed that that's the case. I'm going to knock on wood as well. Guys are definitely shitting their pants on the course. That's what I mean. So I'm glad to see that. Like, I just don't want this to be a birdie fest. Like, you could tell, right? Like, I'm just holding on hope, fingers crossed, and this thing isn't going to play too easy. And yeah, I think with the leans that we were mentioning before, like, you don't want to take all unders. Like, there are going to be a lot of blow up rounds still, like, especially on those guys towards the top that aren't used to being in contention. But like the Xander, maybe the Rory at 71.5, like there are spots where you could take unders at the same time too. So boards don't seem that mispriced. But good to see that the wet, thick rough is getting some people. Thoughts on Koepka, 72.5 on Underdog. That could be an under I would take. So kind of like Xander at 72.5. Like I could see myself doing that, especially because Brooks has been really good this week, especially with the ball striking stats. I mean, that's what you want to see from players. And to this point of the week, gaining off the tee, gaining 2 strokes on approach, he's one of the guys that I'd take to shoot +2 or better. English with a nice bogey on 1 and then Decky bogey 2. Looks like it's going to be a long, hard day for a lot of these players on the golf course. All right, let's get through some matchups, and then we're going to cut this off so I can start to get some of my exposure in myself, which maybe we can wait long enough and we can get some stuff on DraftKings. If not, I guess I'm going to have to join like FanDuel or Bet365 or something, because I'm assuming that they at least have a board up. But let's go through this. So we got Ryan Gerard, Nicholas Norgard, Muller. Gerard should be the favorite. In fact, -125 might not be enough. So we'll throw that one in the shopping cart at least for right now. Poston versus Wallace, slight favorite. He probably should be, especially with the kind of form he's had this year. Connors, -165 versus Michael Kim. That kind of juice probably keeps me off of it, but I would lean that way as like a 55-60% hit rate on a Court Connors. Maybe not quite 60%, but probably like 55-56% hit rate on that sort of a number. Let's keep going through this, though. So I was looking at the board earlier. There were a few that were standing out. So let me just go ahead and throw those ones into the cart right off the bat. Let's see. John Rahm at -200. I was looking at that one. I don't love -200, but we'll mention why I think that one could make a little bit of sense. And who was the other one? Brooks at -120. That was another one that I was looking at before. So yeah, it was these 2 bottom ones were the main ones that I was looking at. Then the Ryan Gerard one, I guess, could be a little bit of an extra. But I just want to see what a parlay of these 2 would look like. If we took John Rahm to beat Nick Taylor, then Brooks Koepka to beat Siwoo Kim, that would be +175 odds. And if we threw in Ryan Gerard, like for shits and gigs, that would be almost like a +400 parlay. Pretty much like a 5x payout on one of those pick'em sites. I'm not against this sort of thing because Nick Taylor with the wet rough, if he's missing fairways, he's going to be in for a really hard time. John Rahm, of course, is an elite driver of the golf ball. So even with the -200, I was kind of looking at that one. In fact, he was -240 and I was looking at it. So now that it's -200, for sure, I think it's in contention. Brooks Koepka here at -120. He was -130, and I was considering taking it. So now that it's only -120, I think it's even better. He's an elite tier player. And by the way, just like Scotty Scheffler, as soon as his round ended, you guys may have seen it. I posted it on my X/Twitter. But Brooks Koepka was working with his putting coach no more than 5 minutes after he signed his scorecard. He probably went right to scoring, signed it, walked directly back to the putting green, and he was working with Pete Cowan out there. So he wants it. He was also, just like Scotty, very frustrated when he wasn't making putts, which I think shows that dog in players. I want people that aren't giving up, just putting up their hands and going, oh, I guess I suck this week. It's just not going to end up working out. I want to see the players that are actively trying to fix things and that show that they care about their craft and, you know, have a little bit of pride in their performance out there too. So Brooks Koepka, I could see mixing in. And then this Ryan Gerard one, I think could be a little sketchier. We might take it out. Let's look at the shots gained metrics first. So Ryan Gerard, been a pretty average player. And then he was against, who was it? Oh my God, got to read it. He's at the bottom. It's Nicholas Norgard Muller, but kind of like with the soft setup. And yeah, he's also been pretty balanced. So let's take him out of there and just go with these top 2. And I'm going to parlay them just because it's a -200 on John Rahm. It's kind of tough to want to play that one as a straight. And I'm not signed into my DraftKings quite yet. I don't want to do that live here on stream and just give you guys my password or whatever. But I'm going to enter that for $100 at +175. So a little bit of a sprinkle on that two-man matchup. Obviously, the Brooks Koepka prop meant to kind of juice up that John Rahm odds at that -200. And yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. Two major championship winners, two guys that play well when the conditions get tough. And today, I think if you hit the ball long and straight, both players tend to do that you're going to be at a massive advantage. That rough has already taken prisoners out there, already leading to some +4, +5 scores. And if you can keep the ball in play, you're going to be able to attack, though, because of the soft greens, the more receptive nature of them. Guys like John Rahm, Brooks that are elite tier iron players are going to have the ability to just go pin hunting, try and hit it close, and I think they're going to be able to pull that off as well. So those will be the two matchups, the two pieces of exposure that we enter for this live stream. Of course, guys, for everything that I enter today, you guys can find that on my Patreon page. We're going to get these props at some point, I'd imagine. If not, it's going to be pretty disappointing to not have them to go through. But over on my Patreon page, I will be posting every single slip, every single prop as I enter them for today. So make sure to check that out for everything I'm playing in round number 3. But that's all I've got, guys. Best of luck out there with everything that you guys are doing. We'll go over any last second questions that you guys might have in the live chat. But all I need from you is to smash the like button if you guys haven't already, and also to subscribe to the channel so you guys don't miss any of the content to come. Tonight, we're going to be doing our round 3 showdown stream. That'll be on the Ship It Nation YouTube. But make sure you subscribe over here as well, because we're going to be doing another prop live stream tonight. I'm getting you ready for round 4's action. So make sure to stop on by for all that later on. And without all this cut line madness, without having them to, have to go out and finish play in the morning, it's going to be a little bit more on schedule, hopefully. Hopefully, we'll actually have every single site posting all these props to go out there and enter, and we can take advantage out there for all of our exposure in our portfolio. But that's all I've got. I'll see if there's any last second questions, and we'll do this. Let's see. No board for FanDuel yet. And yeah, the Bet365, they do round props, Yahtzee, so maybe you haven't seen them before. They're on another tab, though, so you might want to look around for it. I've seen them on there before. They have birdie props. They have round score props a whole lot. Maybe not today, right? That might be the exception because of the kind of situation that we're in, but they typically do have them up. FanDuel doesn't have it up either. Jeez Louise, man. What are they doing? Like, it's the freaking U.S. Open Saturday. Everyone wants to bet on the sport. We had over 100 people in here, right, wanting to bet some stuff on DraftKings and FanDuel, and they're not posting. They're just losing out on money. Like, sure, we could have a big day and end up taking money from them, but they've got a 10% house edge on almost every single prop. Like, you'd think that they'd want to take advantage of their in-house 10% edge, but I guess not, right? Does Spieth have a shot? Value at 125 to 1? No, there's not any sort of value on somebody that's going to be over 100 to 1 at this point. The sports books are taxing most cases. However, could somebody that's at that portion of the board, like +5, +6, +7, win? Yes. They just got to go super nuclear low. And to shoot something like -5 at this golf course probably is a 125 to 1 thing on its own right there. And right, doing that alone isn't going to get you the victory. Like, you're going to have to do that and play good on Sunday, or play decently today and then go nuclear the next day. I probably wouldn't bet it, man. And that's coming from a big Jordan Spieth fan. So I hope he plays well. Maybe you could use him on like a round score kind of thing. Maybe you could use him in fantasy, but I wouldn't bet him outright. That's just maybe taking it a little too far, I would say. He said, appreciate my work, Luke. Let's have a day. Amen to that. Cheers to you too. What time are my lives when I do them after rounds? So it kind of depends, Mason. There's not really like a set time for it because the rounds end at different times, but we'll probably do the showdown stream around 7:37 tonight. And then the prop stream probably around 9 p.m. Eastern time. But the best way to stay on top of that would be to follow my X/Twitter. I do put out tweets showing you guys exactly when I'm going live for all these live streams. So just follow me over there and it'll help you out with it. And yeah, you said Bet365 does have the round scores up. It's good to know. I might have to join over there, man, because I don't have access to DraftKings right now. It's a little bit of a pain in the ass. Scotty, their lead after round 3 is plus 3,500. Wow, I thought it'd be higher than that, man. I mean, I mentioned the hot take before that I thought Scotty might make a run, right? But I figured that'd be 50 to 100 to 1, not 35 to 1. I guess they kind of see it the same way I do, huh? They think that he might have that kind of a run today. I don't know. That's probably not a great number to bet, because I think it should be probably 50 to 100 to 1, but it does at least show that they have some respect for the guy. That's for damn sure. It'll probably be later at like 9 p.m. and it's not random. It depends on when the round ends. So it's based on that, because we have to have a board to go through, right? We have to have the information to go through. It's always going to depend on the situation. Lawrence under 75.5. Yeah, man, if he was at 75.5, he only has to shoot +5 to cover, I wouldn't be against that one at all, man, because even if it is a +3 scoring average, losing 2 strokes to the field would cover that sort of line, which I'm comfortable taking on Lawrence because of how well he's played this week. And I'm a big Thurston Lawrence guy to begin with. So, I mean, shooting +5 feels disrespectful. It's all you have to do to cover that. What site is that on, by the way? Because that's a pretty crazy one. I can't look at all of Prize Picks, so I can't let you know, Shift. This live stream, what we've been doing is having people ask about certain props. I'm up in Pennsylvania, so I literally can't even see the prop boards. But if there's anything you want me to deep dive, feel free to let me know. We're going over any last second questions right now and then hopping on out of here. He said you did the double also and then added some Scotty for the treble. So it's assuming for the matchup bets too. What Scotty was like -200 or something too. But yeah, he's probably going to win his matchup. Let's actually see what that looks like, Brian, because I mean, I hate to say that like Scotty winning's free money, but it might be. It might be with how good he is. And I hate using that word, but it's like he's an absolute tank. Where's he at? So yeah, he's -310. So I guess that gets you up to +263. I'll probably go with just those top two, but I don't hate that. So you said you also got 3 legs on the 2 balls. Yeah, saw that. Let's look at Dabble lines. You said they aren't going off the books. I've never been on Dabble before, man. I don't even have an account over there, and it's probably not even legal in Pennsylvania, so we're not going to be able to do so. Like I was saying before, you could hit me up with questions about it and whatnot. And he said it's on ProfitX, so yeah, it's on one of those exchanges. 75.5, yeah, I'd consider that. I don't know what kind of juice you have on that prop. Like I'm assuming even money because it's on an exchange, or like maybe -105, -110 in that sort of range. Yeah, 75.5, dude, I would take that for sure. And he said Tom Kim for the over 73.5 flat. That's close. Yeah, I would lean over, I would say, but 73 isn't too far off where I would put his projection. I'm personally basing a lot of my projections, my analysis off of a +3 predicted scoring average. If it's going to be around that sort of number, Tom Kim, with his lack of form this year, last few months, I mean, has been sketchy to say the least. I would lean over. I wouldn't say it was a great value though, is I guess what I'm getting at there, but I wouldn't take his under at 73.5, just to, I guess, give you that perspective there. And with the Dabble stuff, you know, we just talked a lot through the different like props and whatnot. You can probably use a lot of that analysis over there on the Dabble side. But if they're like way lower or way higher than what they have on the other books, then there could be some pretty obvious value to get over there. And my best advice would be to use the shots gained metrics to your advantage. Try and find guys that are ball striking it well for your unders. And if, you know, it's fade value that they have on that sort of a site, try and find guys that were a little bit too short game dependent over the first few rounds and make those your priorities when it comes to finding your fades or your positive stance plays. So it's all I've got, guys. Got to go ahead and cut this one off here so that I can get out there on the golf course at some point and get my exposure in. But best of luck, and I'll see you guys for the live streams later tonight.